when you learn what the dance is. I do losing strategy A, and when I do A, my partner does B. And when he does B, then I do more of A. And then he withdraws and I withdraw, game over, right? So I teach people what the losing strategies are and then what the winning strategies are. But you can't use the winning strategies unless you're already in the wise adult part of your brain.
Welcome to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband, a modern day love story. This is not about hating your husband. It's not even about having a husband. It's about living a life full of health, happiness, love, success, and joy. We are going to improve your love life by improving your love of life. I am Remy Stern, the founder of Levy by Remy, a dating and relationship coaching business. Join me and my husband, Jonathan, as we help you navigate the world of dating, relationships, and marriage. Because the quality of your relationship determines the quality of your life. So let's make it a good one. It's time to create a life that you love with so much love. So hop right in. Please welcome Nancy Pickard to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband. And if there's ever an episode that is perfectly on brand, specifically with the title, but in the way to, as we all know, love our husbands and be in a relationship that is long-lasting, thriving, not just surviving, like everything that we're all looking for, I have to say, I'm going to listen to this episode over and over again because Nancy Pickard, who is a marriage and relationship coach, teaches you the tools on how to be your best self in a relationship, in a marriage. We really focus on the tools in a marriage. That being said, if you are not in a marriage, these are tools that you should be learning, as she will describe. And she just gives you the way to be your best self in the marriage, but then to actually have tangible tools, communication styles. We even talk about sex and having the best sex life in a marriage, how to handle different stages and be different people in the relationship. Like, I can't even explain to you how on point and powerful this episode is. And again, I'll be listening to it over and over again. So please do yourself a favor, do me a favor by going in and watching this because it will change your life. So please enjoy.
So I'm a relationship and marriage coach through relational life therapy. And then I'm also a shadow coach. So I do a lot of one-on-one clients on uncovering what's in their subconscious that they don't know about, but it rules their operating system and it keeps them stuck and playing small.
How do those two maybe tie together with someone who comes to you with needing relationship advice, but also has a shadow work?
So let me just separate the two. When I'm working one-on-one, it's because they're not getting what they want out of life. They're not happy. They don't know why. They want in a relationship. They want out of a relationship. They want in a new job. They're afraid to move. They want to lose 30 pounds. All of these things, they're stuck. And the shadow beliefs are around, I'm unworthy. I need to be perfect to be loved. I need to be quiet to be safe. I need to fix everything to be safe. I'm not good enough. My voice doesn't matter. My needs don't matter. Those are shadow beliefs. When I uncover those one-on-one with somebody, then we can move forward with what their goals and vision are because they can see, oh, wait a minute, that's not true for me anymore. So they may have evolved beyond it, but their operating system still believes in it. And so they can't get unstuck. When I work with couples, I do this work in front of each other. And the beauty of couples, and if you think about it yourself, if you're in a relationship, is that your wounds, they lock together like a glove, a hand in a glove or a key and a lock. And they trigger each other. You're supposed to. You're actually with the person. We call it the mysticism of marriage is that you date all these people and then you marry the one who is most set up to like stick a searing rod in your eye. But that's the beauty of it. If you can get beyond the triggers and then figure out what the wound is, you get to do your own work around it. And then your partner gets to learn how they can show up differently because of your wound. Or you'll see that, this person's anxious attachment and this one's this one's a love addict and this one is a love avoidant. It happens all the time. So the more this one pushes in, this one pulls out. And then this one only pulls in when this one pushes out. And when I can teach you to recognize those things, and then we can come up with different ways of being.
It's so brilliant and so true because what I find, like, I wanna capture every single word you just said and and I'll kind of veer it in my direction of what I've seen, is that we have, first of all, probably the wrong view on what a relationship is, partly, let's say, maybe due to Hollywood, due to the fact that nobody teaches you this stuff, and in my opinion, the quality of your relationship determines the quality of your life. It's the person you fall asleep with every night, wake up with every morning, spend most of your meals with, sharing finances with, maybe raising a family with, your best friend, your lover, you're this, you're that. Like, it's so crazy what this one person's supposed to be for us. And we do not have the tools on how to be with that person. On top of that, this person is the closest thing to you who will trigger so many things inside of you. And in the choosing process, I do believe that you do choose a person who is going to get to that deepest, or often, obviously, this is a generalization, but from my experience, who's going to get to that deepest part inside of you and just like kind of poke at it. They're going to go in and purposefully on the universe's account show you that thing inside of you that you need to look at yourself. And it's funny, and I mean, if you see the name of this podcast, it's the idea of like those moments that Jonathan and people who listen to this podcast know him pretty well. He's on most episodes. The things that he does that in the moment I'm like, I hate you. Like, I can't stand you. Get out of my life. Like, obviously, no, not actually, but those feelings that I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I wouldn't go this far, but I know that this is something that people feel like, oh my God, did I marry the wrong person? He's driving me crazy. Like, how can I handle this the rest of my life? That is the thing to dive deeper in, because that is maybe what the person is showing you about yourself. Would you agree on this? It's like,
100%. And two things you said, I'll hit them both separately. What you're describing, we refer to as marital hatred. And when you say, I can stand in front of 1,500 people, and when I mention marital hatred, nobody raises their hand and says, well, I'm sorry, what's that? Right? So that's number one. Number two is what happens is that our brains are really lazy and they like what they know, even if what they know is not good for us, right? So we are attracted to people energetically that are so alike in some way of a family member. They're a narcissist or an alcoholic or a bully, or they don't listen to me, or my needs don't get met with that person. So energetically, it's familiar. Our brain thinks, oh, I know that, I can do that. But we also have this hope that they're also different enough that we'll have a better outcome. So we think they're going to heal us. And they do heal us only by showing us and us doing our own work.
I do believe that who you end up with ends up pushing you and stretching you in a good way, that you have to turn around and look at yourself. So much of the work is actually within ourselves. And then
Oh,
you go
if
look at
you're
the other
willing
person.
to, if you're willing to. So
Mhm.
remember the thing I wanted to tell you. I think it's a fallacy that one person is going to take care of all of your different kinds of needs. So there are 5 different levels of intimacy: intellectual, spiritual, physical, experiential, and emotional. You're not going to get all of those needs met by one person, and nor should you. So maybe that happens in Hollywood, or fairy tale land, but you can't expect one person to fill all those different intimate needs. And yet it's not a problem to get them met by somebody else. So there are a couple things that we're not taught. That's one of them. We think that our person should be our everything. The other thing we're not taught is how to repair. We are not taught how to repair. So all relationships go through phases of harmony, disharmony, and repair. It could happen 10 times in one dinner, right? Oh my God, I hate you. I can't believe you're so stupid. You just said that. And then the next minute they say something, you're like, oh, you're so brilliant. I'm so happy you're my partner. But
It's funny because it's
it's
true.
true, though, it's sadly true.
Yep.
What happens when we skip repair is we just push it under the rug and all of a sudden you've got to go out to dinner, but you're not speaking to each other, but you're meeting two other couples and you have to go. And then so you put it under and you don't ever come back to it. So we don't learn how to repair. And so then we're also afraid when we get into disharmony. The reality is, if you learn how to repair, it doesn't matter how often you get into disharmony. And that's what people don't understand and they don't know how to do.
Amazing. So these are 2 points that I definitely wanna run with, and the first one is all of the things that we expect our partner to be, that it is impossible for them to be all those things because people don't know that. I didn't know that. I know for a fact. I know a lot of my friends, my clients, people don't know that. And we expect this person to be everything. And then we're upset with them when they're not. The other side of the is the repair side, which is something we are not taught. So I guess because we're on repair first, and then we're gonna go back to the other one. Do you have tangible tools for repair for couples?
Oh,
Because
totally.
tell us more.
Totally. I mean, you can listen, this is what I do for a living. I teach these tools. So I'll give you little hints of it. But if
Yes.
you really want to know, you got to come to one of my
Of course.
relationship skill boot camps. So here's one thing I have to teach you first. It's a little bit of the neurobiology of the brain, and it explains how we get triggered and what part of the brain we're talking from and what part of the brain is our partner in, okay? So, without even giving you the parts of the brain, there's the wounded child, there's the adaptive child, and there's the wise adult. Those are the three parts of the brain. The adaptive child is the one that we're in probably 60% of the time, and that you're in 100% of the time when you're triggered. The adaptive child is the part of your brain that learned to adapt in your childhood to everything that was wounding you. Okay? That adaptive child part of your brain does the fight, flight, freeze, or fix. And it's not normal fix, it's obsessive fix. I'm only okay if you're okay. Are you okay? Because if you're okay, I'm okay. And if you're not okay, I'm not okay. I have to fix this right now. No, you can't walk away. You have to stay. Even though you're flooded, you must stay because I need to fix this, right?
Mhm.
So when you're in the adaptive child part of your brain, there is no relationality, there is no intimacy, there is no flexibility, there is no trying to be relational. So I teach my clients how to recognize when they're in the adaptive child part of the brain, recognize what are the losing strategies that their adaptive child uses, and then teach them how to take a conscious time out so they don't stay in the conversation until they're regulated. Because if they're dysregulated or their partner's dysregulated, and generally when one gets dysregulated, the neurons of the other one, they mirror it and they follow. So the work I teach you is how to get back into the wise adult part of your brain that's actually interested in repair.
It's so, so, so brilliant, and I know that everybody who experiences this is going to want and it's not even it's one thing to have knowledge, like, we're so lucky for the type of people who are seeking knowledge, but there's a difference in applying it to your actual life. So, yes, we will tell people where to go for
Great.
sure to get this, like, it's too exciting. So, another thing that I'll see with people is they wanna feel a certain thing and they're not feeling it, so they're actually making that thing worse. So let me give an example. Like, say they want to feel harmony and connection with their partner. And, a typical thing is like, guy comes home from office. Maybe you have the wife has been taking care of the kid for the day. This is very maybe, what's it called when it's stereotypical.
And
Um,
heteronormative. You're talking about a heteronormative
Yes,
household.
exactly. Like husband comes home, he's had a whole day, he just wants to get on the couch, maybe like unwind. All the wife has been waiting for is the husband to come home. I could tell you this from experience. I've had it. But and she's like, "How was your day, honey? Like, tell me what you did." And the guy's like, not now. And of course, neither the person in that situation is necessarily right because you got to give to your partner. But let's say for the wife, because I've experienced this, I've talked to clients about this, she starts to feel disconnected from her husband. So what she'll do is she'll reclude more and create more
Distant.
disconnect. And our coping mechanisms, our repair tools are the opposite of what we want. They're actually working against us
Right.
rather than towards us. And then if we ever communicate with our partner, like you said, typically it's from this place of wounded. And so we're coming at aggressively at them, being like, you're wrong. I'm right. I also find it so funny how much we think that we are like perfect and the husband is like a huge or husband or wife is like a huge work in progress. Like Jonathan and I have this joke that I'm like, I think it was a meme on Instagram, but it's just so funny that I'm like something in a museum that you can't touch because it's like perfect. Like I find it funny because I believe this.
Right.
Like
Right.
I'm so evolved and I'm so perfect. I'm like in a
Right.
museum, stare at me, don't touch me, and like learn from me. And he's this like falling apart building with scaffolding that I just have to like completely work on.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so we go into these things and we want connection, we want love, we want like we're taken care of and deep like we want all of these things, but again, we are not given the tools and we're acting from a place of wounded healing. And I've you know studied this stuff a lot and how we mirror our relationships. Like the two most common relationships are ones with our parents and our ones with our lovers or our spouses, let's say. I would go as far as say like there's no other relationship in the world that gets to that place. Maybe your colleagues, but it mirrors the love that you receive from your parents, then mirrors kind of the love that you give and receive to a partner. So it's this very, very deep work that we don't invest in. And we just hope and expect it to potentially work out. Like we plan for the wedding, we get the dress and the flowers and the this and the that, but we do not plan for the God willing 50, 60 years of marriage past that. And another thing I once heard actually from a divorce lawyer, ironically, was that if you were buying a car that was gonna last you the rest of your life. First of all, if you're in your 20s and you're like, what car would you choose? Someone would probably be like, the 6 sports car, like 2 seats, window doors go up like this. But if you ask someone who has kids in their 30s, they're gonna be like minivan or like, let's say Escalade to like fit all the kids. If you the next person, you're like the comfiest car that I can get in and out of. But let's say you're choosing one car for the rest of your life. Not only are you gonna like think through this decision and like know what like put the research in, know what car you want, you're also going to take care of this car. You are going to service it. You are going to clean it and wash it. Like this is the car for the rest of your life. You are going to care so much about that car. We don't do that. From
Right.
what I've seen, the divorce rate is just
Yeah.
too clear that we don't do it. And the cool thing that I love that you do is you say, great, yes, this is between two people. Of course, you need the tools on how to be with someone else who's different than you, who's all of these things. But first, together, do it for yourself. Like look
Right.
at your wounds first, look at how you're reacting, do the same for the other person. And from that place of harmony, come together as like a bigger whole. I know I spoke a lot, but is that about right?
Yeah. No, it's all of it. Everything you're saying is true. And we don't have the communication and intimacy skills. There are 5 losing strategies that we all use some combination of. Some of us use one, some of us use all 5, right? The need to be right, which you've spoken about, the need to control, unbridled self expression, which is something that women do way more than men, but men do it too. When you see a man do it, you're like, oh my God, but we do it. It's like, you did this, and 6 months ago you did this, and 2 years ago you did this, and like the day I met you, you did this, and we have a brain like an elephant, right? We forget nothing except where our phone or our keys are, but we know everything you said for the last 20 years. And so that's unbridled self expression, retaliation, and withdrawal. So that example that you just talked about, the guy was withdrawing and he just got home. He's exhausted. He doesn't realize that his wife has a need right now for connection. And so he withdraws, and then she either runs in more or feels disconnected and then she withdraws. So when you learn what the dance is, I do losing strategy A, and when I do A, my partner does B, and when he does B, then I do more of A, and then he withdraws and I withdraw, game over, right? So I teach people what the losing strategies are and then what the winning strategies are. But you can't use the winning strategies unless you're already in the wise adult part of your brain.
Wow. So you have to do the internal work. And once you do the internal work, and this is what I tell a lot of my clients who are in relationships, they get so upset with the other person. I can't believe he's doing this and doing this and doing this. I'm like, stop. Let's look at you and yourself. And it sucks. You're like, no, but they're wrong. And I'm right. Like you said, like the need to be right. And I'm like, let's look at
It's
maybe
a
where you're not right.
it's a co-creation, number one. Number two, the answer to who's right and who's wrong in a relationship is who cares. Like, you have to learn that it doesn't matter. It's not about right or wrong, it's about repair. And then also,
Beautiful.
we all swim in psychological patriarchy. That's how my parents were brought up, and the parents before me were brought up, and blah, 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 blah. And there are certain things that go along with psychological patriarchy that women of today are no longer going to put up with. Like, we don't want a grandiose man that thinks it's my way or the highway. Or, like, when I grew up, it was our father, our king, and we were all the little princesses, but it was his word. And well, that's not going to work today. So what happens a lot is there's a discrepancy between how the husband was brought up and how his father was king in this house and how it is in the reality of today. Like,
Hmm.
and lots of men just haven't gotten the memo.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's confusing because at the same time, I found that there are biological differences of men and women. And yes, we live in a world where, thank God I also have a career. And so I'm not just sitting at home,
Right.
mom, housewife. Like at the
Right.
end of the day, there's times I'm like, okay, I spoke too much today. Like, don't talk to me because I need to like unwind. Like it is very much so changing. If anything, I love the quote from the movie Big Fat Greek Wedding, where it's like, okay, fine, the man's the head of the house, but the woman's the neck, and she gets to turn the head whichever way she wants.
Right.
I genuinely believe that. I
Right.
think there is an amount of women have this incredible power that maybe is unseen a little bit, but in my opinion is maybe more powerful than the man's. And by using this and turning it, like you really can get what you want out of things certain times. I don't know if you've ever read The Empowered Wife. Sometimes it can feel a little bit like archaic and old, but like has really tangible things. But I do find that there's differences between men and women that if you don't capture, it'll drive you crazy. So the way that men process emotions versus women, like something that was huge for me and a lot of my clients is that I find men typically want to be the fixers, right? They're point A to point B. I mean, literally their body parts are external. Everything's like make stuff happen. If you look at hunter gatherer times, like you can gather enough information to be like, this is some truth. It's not just, biology loads the gun, society pulls the trigger. Like there is some biology for sure in this. And when I'm sitting there sad and Jonathan's like, yeah, let's fix this. I'm like, no, no, I just need you to tell me that I'm sad and that's okay. Like, and a lot of women, I think, experience that. So there is a difference when you put under one roof two complete different genders and men, a lot of men have a lot of feminine qualities, a lot of women have a lot of masculine qualities. So it goes both ways. But even just that practical going through conflict, going through day-to-day decisions with two people who are completely different in their genders and their upbringings and their maybe age and their so many factors, like it can cause friction if you don't have the tools. Speaking of the tools.
For sure. And also, when I talk about masculine and feminine, I'm actually talking about the characteristics,
Yeah.
not the gender.
Yes, 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 yes.
So, and also, the thing about the head and the neck, that happens in a lot of relationships, but there are so many couples that I work with that the woman stays home and the man has all the money, and I don't care who you are, the one who makes the money has the power, and she's
Wow.
very unhappy in the relationship and can't get out. And so we typically we sort of think about the head and the neck like that, but the reality is the one that has the power tries to control overtly. The one who doesn't have the power uses manipulation and uses control, covertly.
So fascinating. So
Yeah.
how do you see that play out? Because again, it's such a balance. Like there is a way that I find in relationships, like this might sound cheesy and silly, but like the first place to start in a relationship is to give to the other person, right? We're often in the place of taking and receiving. Like he's not making me happy anymore. He's not giving me what I need. But it's like, okay, the minute you notice that they're not giving you what you need, see where you can give to them in a certain place. And you're almost like filling up the piggy bank. And then when you have an ask, the piggy bank is full. So,
Mhm.
in my opinion, that would be like an energetic way to make a shift in a relationship, even beyond like the conversation of it and stuff. But like, it's a way to be like, I'm going to give to them. I'm going to show them what makes me happy and how this like fills me up and I can kind of maneuver things, but it's not manipulation. It's energetic maneuvering, I would say. But how do you see that play out? Where is there a positive way that you can like quote unquote manipulate or maneuver? Or is
Well,
it
there's manipulation is doing something because you want a response. Like even a people pleaser is a controller. I'm going to do this for you and make you so friggin' happy that you're going to want to do all of that for me. Now, that's actually not as healthy as just honestly saying, this is what I need. This is what I need. I tell my clients that nobody has the playbook on you but you. Men or women or anybody. We're not mind readers. If you specifically know what you want, you need to express that to your partner, and then you need to help your partner give that to you. So I'll give you an example. You could say to your partner, the wrong thing to say is, I'm not getting enough sex in this relationship, and, I'm unhappy. The right thing to say to your partner is, we deserve a better sex life. Now you've made
interesting?
it about us, right? And you could say, I feel, you're making it about you, I feel neglected when you never make any advances to me. Would you be willing to do blah, blah, blah? And what do you need from me so you could give me that?
Wow.
That's a whole great feedback wheel package. You don't make it about them. You make it about you. And then you give them the gift of saying, what do you need from me so you can give me that? I mean, I can give you a life example of me saying to my partner, I want to have sex more often. What do you need from me so we can do that?
That is so simple and so
So
powerful.
simple. And
But
his response was, you have to be nicer to me. Right? And so again, he got to complain about me, right? And ask something of me, even though I was the one that was in the asking position. Because I do a whole thing with my clients about speakers versus listeners, and they're not the same. It's not a dialogue, it's a one-way conversation. That's how it's supposed to be. But anyway, all I had to say to him was, yeah, I can give you that. I can do that. And then his response would be, well, then I can do that.
that is really cool, and it's interesting because there's also a lot of information out there, so you can over information yourself in anything in life, unfortunately, these days.
Right.
And the whole thing right now is like everyone's like, "Oh, you can't drink out of this cup, you can't drink out of that cup. Drink this, but don't drink this. Protein, no plant-based." Like it's over information out there. And there is a concept out there that like over communication also isn't good sometimes. Like obviously communication super important, but like there's a place where you can maybe nitpick or get to things that like don't matter as much. And if you over communicate, it just causes more issues than actually helps.
Mhm.
Um, so then in instances like that, I think there's times where action might speak louder than words, but this is such a clear way to have words speak as loud and as clear and as concise as possible. Like if someone is out there, and by the way, I get a lot of questions on Instagram and stuff about sex life and marriage. Because I think it's a big thing for people, especially, a lot of my audience would be kind of like the beginning of just having kids, and like you've got newborns and toddlers and like your schedule has just
Right.
changed and you've just been pregnant and now you're breastfeeding. It's like, oh, the husband's like what they used to see, maybe you feel differently about it. I've heard that husbands like women more actually after after all that, but for women it's different. But that simple way. So my first question actually is, do you think over communication can be a thing, or you think the first like is there a time that action will speak louder than words? Um, where like someone can go and just like make the initiative with the person, show that they like the thing, and then like it improves, or do you think communication is the first place to start?
Well, you've asked me a lot of questions, so
I know.
I'll try to answer. First of all, too much communication is unbridled self-expression, so that's not what we're looking for. That's why we use a feedback wheel, and you only get 8 sentences, and everybody can listen to 8 sentences. Beyond that, people can't really listen. Um, and then in terms of sex, there's always a discrepancy in desire. And I say to my clients, if you're 40 and under, in general, the men want more sex than women. If you're 50 and over, or 60 and over for sure, the women want more sex than the men. So if you stay with the same partner throughout the whole thing, it's going to kind of even out. But in terms of the thing you asked me about action, you can be the change you want to have. You can be the relationship you want to have. But to do that and not make it about manipulation, you have to have no need for a certain outcome. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be more loving. I'm going to initiate sex more. I'm going to do those things because I'd like this to be the way our relationship goes, but I have no attachment to what's going to happen. I'm not going to say to myself, well, I just initiated sex 2 times in a row and he still hasn't done it. I'm done, right? That's not the answer. You have to do it from a place of generosity. I want my relationship to be better, and therefore I'm going to do these things. And yes, you may hope that it's going to rub off, but you're also just being the relationship you want to have and hoping that organically it's going to move in that direction.
You just explain the whole thing because I think that's where maybe the disconnect comes from. It's like there is such a concept of be the relationship. I think you said it better, but like be the relationship you want to be in. Because if you start taking actionable steps yourself, it really does impact the relationship. Like
Right.
I notice in my own self, I notice in my clients that if I'm focusing on being my best self, I feel better. I come into the house better. Honestly, Jonathan like respects me differently. He's got this like energy. Of course, if I need to be depressed, he's like more than happy to sit on the couch and let me cry hysterically. But like the more I invest in being my best self, the more it impacts the relationship in a good way and vice versa for him. And so there is an amount of be that relationship. So whether it comes to the sex life or the spiritual intimacy, like there's so many ways that you can make the change in yourself. But the issue is when people get tied to the outcome of it and then they get so frustrated that the outcome hasn't happened. And I think that's the missing piece that you're saying is there is a way to communicate from a place of healed, right? Or healing, let's say, like you're not speaking out of the unhealed. You're saying, I have healing to do. So let me at least do as much as I can, as you do as much as you can, so we can come together and create healing within ourselves together. And that largely has to do with communication and action together. Like there's the first step, which is always yourself, but then there's that second step that has to be done together as a couple, correct?
Yes,
Eh,
exactly.
And I think that is mind blowing Tell me.
Yeah. I also think that there's a great concept that we use in relational life therapy called relational reckoning. Am I getting enough in this relationship to be okay to grieve the loss of what I'm not getting?
Wow, tell me more.
So women in particular are always looking for what's not working, you know, or I gave up so much. I needed a man who was going to make X amount of money and my partner doesn't. Or I used to think I had to have a guy who did all the sports I did, right? Like they had to be a hiker and a biker and a yoga and a skier, or it wasn't going to work for me, right? So, am I getting enough? If you look at what you are getting, if what you're getting is enough, then you have to give up looking at what you're not getting because there's loss, there's inherent loss in every relationship. You're never going to get everything you're never going to have the partner you think you deserve. Okay? You're going to have the partner that you have. And so relational reckoning is like, okay, here we are. Am I getting enough to grieve the loss of what I'm not getting? If the answer is yes, stop complaining and stop looking at what you're not getting and start cherishing what you are getting so you will get more of it. If the answer is no, then you fight for, like hell to get those things met. And if you still can't get them met, then you need to leave the relationship.
That's out of control brilliant. Just I'm literally sitting here like
It's very
I'm
real,
no,
but
but I'm like elevating of like that is incredible. And the way that I've been taught it and think of it is closing the bad eye because it's true. Like you can focus on the ways that your partner is not perfect and why you quote unquote could deserve so much better, but it's not
mhm,
true. This partner came to you. I think there is an amount of, whether or not it's soulmate or like one soulmate in the world, I actually think you kind of your soul chooses the partner per se, as well as like a greater thing bringing you together, of course, because you didn't build this person on a computer. Like they were built, you were in the same place at the same time, you did something about it. And my whole thing is then you have to go and choose that partner every single day. And part of that choosing that partner is closing the bad eye and keeping the good eye open and seeing them through that good eye every single day. Because if you saw them in the good eye yesterday, does not mean you're going to see them in the good eye today for sure.
mhm.
And that has a huge part, if not everything, to do with like looking at what you are getting from the relationship. And I think it's a human trait that we look at what we don't have or what we're not getting. And it's such a shame because in anything in life, that's going to ruin your life. Like you can
Right.
look.
Well, but it's our humanity. You know, when we were cavemen, you needed to look for what wasn't right. You had to be safe. But so we have not evolved to where we know we're safe and we don't have to be looking for what's wrong. And also, like I see with women who are dating, they're always looking for what's wrong. They don't want to get their heart broken, so they have this wall of protection, and the wall of protection is what's not working. So I'm going to get out before they don't want me anymore.
It's so true. So I have a question on that front because I find that we aren't given the tools on how to be married on the super, super long contract that you're signing with someone. We aren't given the tools on how to choose the partner, especially nowadays where the way people are dating is extremely different all of the sudden. First, it started with what I think of as the hookup culture. I don't know when people would say that happened 10, 20, 15 years ago. I'm not sure, but it no longer was the like courting. And there's good to this, of course, where it's like, we're balancing it all out, but there's no like courting the woman and bringing flowers and asking the parents if you can take them out. It's no, we're in a club together. We're dancing. You're hot. You're hot. We have all sexual liberation. I know that birth control is like part of this whole thing. We sleep together. We have fun together. Maybe we get married, but then we realize 20 years down the line that our values are completely different. Like we never spoke about that. So that definitely I don't think is a conducive way. You can get married and stay together forever, but I don't think it's a conducive way to choose a partner for life. Now it's dating apps, which is like a whole thing within itself, has a lot of good to it. Of course, I have a few friends getting married right now from Hinge and all of these dating
Uh-huh.
apps, but
Right.
it's swipe left, swipe right, right, and like you don't actually know the person when you're swiping low, whatever it is. So let's go for 2 seconds to choosing a partner because we don't know how to be with a partner. We don't know how to choose a partner. The last step is I don't think we know really how to be on our own. So that's a whole nother thing. But in choosing a partner, do you have kind of a recipe, a format to be like, this is the type of person to spend the rest of your life with?
This is harsh, but look at their friggin' childhood, you know? Did they come from a healthy background? And do they have a loving relationship with their parents? If their parents are no longer together, what happened? And are they in loving relationships now? Like so much is about the wounds from your childhood, and yet and you're on the first date. You're not like, all right, so tell me about your mom, right? You don't do all of that, but that's a big part of it. And then I think that, I used to do this thing with my female and male clients like manifest, manifest, manifest. I want you to write it all out in heavy detail. Don't leave anything out. Like put numbers to things, put everything down. What are the moral values? How much money do they need to make? What do they need? And the reality is we have wants and needs. Most of the things on that piece of paper are wants. Your needs should be like three needs. I need somebody who shares my moral values. I need somebody who's going to treat me well, not be abusive, and and not cheat on me. Right? Like you have certain needs. Those are needs. I need somebody who wants a family. I mean, that's it. Everything else are wants. Sure, I'd love him to make X amount of money. I'd love him to look a certain way. I'd love him to do these sports. I'd love him to treat me A, B, and C. But those are all negotiable. Get down to your non negotiables and then make sure, here's the kicker, make sure you actually have those non negotiables. Are you loyal? What's your moral compass? Right? What's your North Star? Do you cheat or lie to your partner? Because you have to become the partner you want to attract. I think about it like, where's Waldo? Right? I'll say to my clients, all right, look, Waldo's left the door. Your romantic partner has a suitcase in his hand or her hand, and they are walking towards you. But you will not be in their space until you have become that person yourself. So let's work on you. And then let's get on the dating apps because that's really the only show out in town. There's really people are very rarely have somebody to fix you up with, even though you love fix ups because they feel better because everyone's known by somebody. But it doesn't really happen that often. And you almost never meet people like in a club or sitting at a bar or anything. It's really the apps are really it. And so be honest and make sure that you are checking out the red flags and you don't have your blinders on and you're becoming that person yourself.
Oh, I love it, and I'm gonna have like one question within it, but that's my biggest thing and what I work on clients with, and I think it comes up hugely when you're single and you're searching for a partner, and I think each stage in your life has, I am rooted in Judaism, so God Hashem will like take you on that journey to learn certain things, to become a certain person, to experience the next level. So it's so funny because a lot of my clients are single and they're like, yes, but when I get married, then it's all just going to make sense. And I'm going to say, thank you for saving me. And like all is well. I'm like, when you get married is when the real work begins. Like, obviously not. It's a
Right,
lot of work. But I'm
right,
like, Jonathan, there's, I think Seinfeld has a joke. It's like, no, now you're really in Afghanistan when you're married. Like now it's like a lot of work. It's
right.
beautiful, it's meaningful, it's deep, but it's a lot of work. But
Yeah.
when you're single, A huge part of finding this person is becoming the version of yourself who is with that partner already. So the values portion is by far the most important portion. The trustworthy, loyal, all of those things you spoke about. Like that's the most important part. For fun, going to the next level, which is the more like maybe superficial, but also it's identity level. Is your partner the type of person who's waking up at a certain time, going to the gym at a certain time, has extracurricular activities, like maybe they play tennis, maybe they play golf, maybe they travel, maybe they love restaurants. Like the person you want to be with, what are they doing? First of all, if you're going to a bar every night hoping to meet that person, but whoever you marry, you don't want them to drink, you probably shouldn't be going to a bar to meet them. You probably should be picking up tennis and throw a
Right.
tennis ball into the court next to you where the cute guy is and like start up a conversation. Right? Obviously, these things are like, okay, great. That only happens in movies, but there's an amount of truth to them. But the most important part is you becoming the version of yourself who is with that partner because that aligns you immediately to the frequency of where that partner is. And it's crazy. I like want to literally cry thinking about it. I had a client finish with me. I do a 4-month program like a month ago. And last night, her boyfriend finally said, I'm in love with you. He's meeting the family tonight. But like just by doing that internal work, like
Mhm.
things change. And I do believe in relationships that pertains, which we're saying, like, be the relationship you want to be in. There is just this added portion, which you have all of the answers times a million of now you're doing it yourself, but you're also doing it with another person. So how can you kind of
Yeah.
mesh that together, have the new tools for it? So that's my little tangent about this. My question for you is going to be something else, but I don't know if you want to hop in with with a thought
The
there
only thing
before.
I want to say to what you said with the Seinfeld thing is Terry Real says that the day that you roll over in bed and you look at your partner and you're like, what am I doing with this partner? That's the first day of your marriage.
That's so cute. Is does he have like a follow-up to, to
Well,
how
no,
that
it's
applies?
like, see, because yes, we talk about that there are three different kinds of levels of the relationship. The first one is love without knowledge, right? First 6 months or year, everyone sends in the representative, everyone's on their best behavior. Your hormones are flying, sex is amazing. This is amazing, okay? The second part of the relationship you move into the stage is knowledge without love. Like, oh my God, he's this isn't what I signed up for, right? I didn't know that he does this, or he chews so loudly, or he doesn't have a good relationship with his mom, or where are the flowers I was getting every Friday afternoon, or what does he mean he's not picking me up at the airport? He was picking me up like every single time, right? So this is where you're doing the reconciliation. Like, well, is this going to be worth it? And if you make it through that stage, you get to the final stage of love with knowledge. These are his flaws, and these are my flaws. And yet we love each other and we're in for the long haul.
That is so beautiful. That is so, and that just described, in my opinion, a relationship, a long-lasting relationship, which is what we all want.
Right.
And I unfortunately think specifically, no offense to the generation before me, but I think divorce became a little too casual and like
Mhm.
they get to that knowing without love stage, knowledge
You're
without
out.
love,
Right.
and they were out and they were like, he's not making me happy anymore. He's not bringing me the flowers anymore. She's not same on the other side for
Yeah.
sure. And in that stage, and I've heard my grandparents, thank God they had marriages till right in the
Right.
end. And
Right.
my grandma we lost my grandpa recently. He was 104 almost. So
It's amazing.
beautiful long life. And I just saw her for the first time without him around. And it's really it's she like he was her everything, but they definitely got to the stage of knowledge and love.
Right.
And they were like, there's almost the best part of the relationship actually exists at that stage. And we're all just thinking that, marriage just gets worse and worse and worse.
No, no.
And
Yeah.
and that's what we're all looking towards. So I think that's such a beautiful North Star that when you're in the stage of knowledge without love, it's like this is the exciting stage that I get to learn. Like I'm learning and I'm trying to like integrate the love with it. And I think that's what you do so magically. And I've kind of one like silly kind of out there question, but I think that it plays in the dating process, in the marriage process, but it's the idea of like that spark, right? The fireworks, the spark, and like if I'm going to be completely honest, I really did and do experience it with Jonathan, and it's something that I'm very grateful that I can return to. Like we'll go through dry spells and times where it's like maybe he's more stressed out at work, I'm more like running around with Juliet, tired, falling asleep at 9 p.m. and like whatever it is. We'll have times where we're more disconnected and kind of indifferent to each other. I'm like, hey bud, like what's up?
Right.
And then there's times that I'm so grateful that I like look at him the way that I looked at him at the beginning. And I had those sparks when I first met him and the world melted away and I had the rose colored glasses on and all of the things. And there's that difference of the lust versus love. Like you don't want to end up in something that's obviously just lust and it can cloud you and that. But I do think there's the practical, the values, the all the things you're talking about, the good on paper. There's one last piece of that. I think it's the soul saying yes. Like when you know that something inside of you, that spark. So just in your opinion, like how that applies during dating and then into the marriage, like can the spark stay alive? And like where does that exist in all of this?
Um, I think that it's not, I think that you can't pinpoint it. There's not a right or wrong, a yes or no. I think that the spark dulls and changes and morphs, but that there's generally, if you're in a good, loving marriage, there's still that core string that this is my person. And you'll have moments of that initial attraction or a great sex that ends up with like, oh yeah, yeah, I have a lot of clients, including me, that when you have sex, you'll be like, why don't we do this more often, right? Because sex brings you back to the two of you. It's a great uniter. And and again, we talked about this earlier, but one of the problems between couples with sex in heteronormative relationships is that women need to feel connected to have sex. And a lot of times men need sex to feel connected. And that's a generalization. But at the end of the day, what is true is that both parties, sex is a connector. And, but also, it's only a connector if both parties are a yes. Like if one party is having sex because the other party's going to pout or retaliate, then that's not consensual. And that plays into it. So again, when it comes to sex and your partner, you got to feed them your manual. They don't know. They're doing what worked for the last woman, and that might not work for you, and vice versa. You know how to do what you know how to do, but what you're doing may not be what really works for your guy at this time around. So, in the long haul, it's all about communication.
You're going
Keep the communication open.
I love that that's what you're going back to because again, there's too much information around it and I'm going to come up with what I think the issue is. People don't know how to communicate effectively. I think that is probably the biggest issue and so you're saying the main thing is communicate from a place of healed, effective, bringing you together, creating connection rather than disconnection. And the tools are important for that and are necessary, and people need them. So, with that, where where do they get them? How tell us?
Okay.
I know it's not even a question in my mind that people have asked me for this episode a lot.
Oh,
A
really?
lot, a lot, a lot. Exactly everything you said. So people are looking for this. Where do they find you? How do they get this? Everything. Tell
Okay.
me.
I'd love to tell you. I love talking about this. So, what I do when I work with couples, I work with couples who are on the brink of divorce. I work with couples who really love each other, but they've got young children and they're not having sex, they haven't had sex in 2 years, or this is happening and that is happening. I work with couples that are in their second marriage and they've just started dating, but they want to get it right. I actually work with couples who have broken up twice, and the only way they're going to give it another shot is when they're going to try it with me. So there's all these different ways. But I do this 2-day boot camp. We call it the Relational Skills Boot Camp. I have one in Aspen, February 22nd and 23rd, and I have one in Mill Valley, California, June 7th and 8th. They're 2 full days in person. They teach all of the skills. We teach you where you show up on a relational grid. We teach you we teach you all about the neurobiology of the brain, the feedback wheel, a dead stop contract, timeouts, core negative images, and how to figure out what your core negative image is of your partner, and then what your partner can do to bust that core negative image. There's so many tools. In my last boot camp, it was online, and I do them once a year online because then you don't have to travel and you don't have to leave your house, but it's still 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, 2 days in a row. You got to be in for the whole thing, but you walk out with so many skills. And it's normalized. You're listening to another couple say something and you're like, oh my God, that's so us, right? Or people are laughing because they're like, yes, exactly, that's my story. But you're doing it in the intimacy of a small group, but you're not going into like hardcore one-on-one couples work either. It's more skills. So in my last camp, I had 23 people and 9 of them were not coupled. So you're going to get the skills, whether it's when you're in a relationship or it's your relationship with your children, your adult children, if you're, my age, or with your parents or with your siblings or with your coworkers. The skills are for everybody.
Brilliant. So cool. And then you have these boot camps, incredible. On top of that, people can work with you
Oh,
one-on-one
of course, they can totally work on me one-on-one.
or
And
with
yeah,
couples as well.
yeah, that's 2-on-1, right? Yeah.
Amazing. So where can they find you?
So Nancy Pickard, lifecoach.com is my website, and you can get a free discovery call there, and you'll put it in the notes.
Yes.
And also follow me on Facebook, more on Instagram. I mean, they're both on both, but I do a million reels on Instagram. You can get like half of my work just by watching and following me on Instagram. Plus, I like to get my numbers up, so please follow me.
You're like, I'm just gonna be honest. I need more.
Yeah, I like the numbers. Yeah, I go to summits all the time, and they're like, "Well, you need 10,000 followers," and I'm like, 10,000 followers is not even normal. Like they're not all following you, right? So that should not be the criteria. But
definitely not. No, I actually think the less who actually trust you, the better. Than having more who
it's not the answer. Yeah.
This was everything and more. Thank you, Nancy. We're probably gonna have to have you come on again because this is incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you for listening to the series. If you like our podcast, please show us some love. Your love helps us grow and allows us to give you more of what you want. So like us, follow, review, subscribe, all of the good things. Share it with a friend, share it on your social media. It helps more than you know. We release a new episode every single Monday, so stay tuned. We love you.